Hello everyone, my name is Jen and welcome to the book review. Hello my friends, it is time to do another oddly specific romance recommendation. And this is actually one of my favorite types of forced proximity, which again, I say this lots of times, most types of romance are forced proximity because that's how we get things going, you know. But there's no more extreme version of forced proximity than being stuck together in a cabin in the woods. And this is something that, again, I've had this combined kind of with some other videos. So, or with, like, I've combined books like this into other videos before. And so there are definitely going to be some books that don't get mentioned in this list because they're in other videos. And there are a couple in this video that I pulled from other videos to put in here, okay? Because this list could be very, very long if I did that. But some other videos I've done that cross over with this one, right, are going to be snowed in. They're going to be survival. They're going to be apocalypse. All of those categories kind of exist within a cabin in the woods, okay? So we're going to go over some of those. But I did kind of fit these into like 4 categories. I'm not going to do like each category like separately, but you'll see that these books fit into those. And those kind of categories are survival, which can be like the apocalypse one, or for another reasons, woman on the run. So she's running from someone trying to hurt her, from a bad relationship. She's running to protect her child, something like that. Kidnapped. So the person that you're trapped with in the cabin is the one who kidnapped you. And then I have an other category, which, snowed in probably is what fits that kind of. So yeah, that is what I have to go through. Okay. So without further ado, let's get into these. And of course, I have to start with my very favorite, the queen of forced proximity and survival and snowed in all together, is of course Clare Kent. And as I do lately give you the disclaimer, I do work for Clare Kent. I PA for her. So that means that I am just fully disclosing that you buying from Clare Kent doubly helps me out, right? Because not only is using one of my links down below help me out, but I do work for her, so her being successful makes me successful. So I just put that out there. But also, if you've watched my channel at any point before 2025, I've been recommending her books for the last, I think at this point, like 4 or 5 years. So you can decide how biased that makes me. But a series of hers that has a lot of snowed in together is, of course, in a cabin in the woods. She actually has a whole series that's like stranded together, which I haven't read those yet. I'm very much looking forward to them under her Noelle Adams name. But her Kindle series has quite a few. Now, not all of them are cabins in the woods, but a lot of them are. So let's go through 3 in the series that really focus around a cabin where it's just the hero and the heroine, and in one of them, a child as well, stuck in a cabin together. So first up, we have Embers, which is one of my favorites in the series, though I say that about a lot of them. One of my friends is reading through this series for the first time, and with each book she starts, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's my favorite. Oh no, this is my favorite. Because that's what happens when you really love an author. You say that about everything, you know? So this one is a dead boyfriend's dad. It's not an ex-boyfriend's dad. The boyfriend does die in the beginning of this when, oh, my nails kind of match this one. That's nice. Sadly, she was the girlfriend to Cal's son. And when the apocalypse happened, they were staying with his mom. And then the mom died. And now they are getting kind of attacked in the city. And Cal comes in to check on his son, and he was never married to the mom or whatever. Anyway, not important. We won't go into all that. And they end up coming to his cabin that he stays at. Now, Cal is kind of an ex-criminal. It is heavily hinted at he used to be a part of possibly a biker gang at one point, which is why his baby mama didn't want anything to do with him. He was a bad boy. They had a one-night stand, all these things. But he does really care about his son. And so he rescues his son, and his son's girlfriend, Rachel, only for the son to pass away very soon after. He'd already gotten sick from the ash and the sadness in the air, because in this world, sadness in the air, the sediment in the air, it is very sad, because in this world, the Kindle series happened because like an asteroid hit Earth and it made the air and everything very not sustainable for life for most people. So very soon after, this boy dies, and now it's Cal and Rachel alone in his one-room cabin. And we see them through quite a few years, actually, of first, you know, very begrudgingly, not really getting along. He's very grumpy. And then, you know, they're each other's only person to rely on, which is the case through this series a lot. And when her and Cal do start to have feelings for each other, Cal is going to feel a lot of guilt about that, okay? He's going to feel a lot of self-hatred about that, and that's going to be a thing. But they are in a cabin together for quite a long time. Same as the case in Hero, which this one is actually very underrated within the series because it is one of the novellas, but because it's not the first novella, which is Haven, which really kind of starts off the series, like Last Light and Haven are the two books, depending on where you start, that start the series off. And and so this one gets overlooked, but this is a really powerful one. And in this one, Esther, yeah, because she calls her Essie. So they actually are in a cabin that they started off with 10 people in a cabin. And there was her mom and stepdad, her stepdad's like parents, the stepdad's brother and his girlfriend. And I think there was also an uncle. Like there was a lot of people there. And now, a few years on, the only people left is Esther and then Zed, who was her stepdad's brother, younger brother. He's about 10 years older than her, but, you know, it's not like she grew up around him or at anything or all. And his girlfriend he had brought with had Rena, their little girl, and everyone else is dead. It's just them left. And one of the things I do love about how Clare does these things is all that I've just said is very heavy stuff, but we don't dwell on those things, right? Like we start in the beginning, like knowing who all these people are, and then we very quickly skip to later on. And so we don't have to feel quite like the pain of missing everyone in a way, you know, like we know what the stakes are and we know how we got here, but then we kind of like skip past it, right? So anyway, this is them. And what the whole point of this little novella is that they've been living in this cabin in the woods. They had been by a lake, so they've been trapping and fishing, but they're running out of food and they really don't think that they'll make it through another winter. And so even as like their feelings for each other are finally coming to the surface, they may need to try to make a break for it and get to, you know, they need to find a new place to stay. And some of the choices that Esther will make to save her little family are very brave of her to do. And it's just kind of amazing to watch, right? But I also love the cover of this one. Oh, these are the hardcovers, which are all available on Amazon. I'll put a link to those ones in there, but I love those. They're so pretty. And then I know I've said how much I love these. Now I really love this one because it feels to me almost like a historical romance, and you know, I love historical romance, so the fact that there's like an apocalypse story that feels like that, I enjoy. So in this one we have Homestead, and this one is kind of interesting too because if you're reading through the series, it really kind of takes a step away from characters we've like known before, and shows us kind of a different part of the world in here. But in this one we have Jimmy. This is Jimmy and Chloe. Now this one also starts off with a traumatic event. They all do, they really do. This one we have Chloe and her grandpa for, I believe we are like 10 years after Impact in here, like we're quite a ways in. And her grandfather was a prepper, and he had a cabin in the woods that he had like a lot of self-sustaining things. And so the apocalypse happened when I believe she was only like 12 or 13. And so for 10 years, she's just lived with her grandpa in this cabin, and they've been self-sustaining for the most part, and everything's been fine. He had ATVs and gas stored up and food and everything. And so they haven't needed to go anywhere. And also it's meant that they've been isolated and don't really know what's going on anywhere. And so when, at the beginning of this, they are kind of venturing out, whatever. And right away on the page 2, it gets surrounded by these, wild people, not, like bad guys. And her grandpa gets killed right in front of her. She gets rescued by Jimmy. And he is like, what are you doing in this area? This is called the wild. It's not safe here. And she's like, we literally didn't know that. We live here. So unbeknownst to them, they have lived in what is literally a danger zone their whole time, because these areas have been kind of not even officially divided up, but there's places where it's a bit more civilized. And then there's those that are still raping and pillaging and, still living their lawless life, not even trying to really organize or anything. And Chloe has nowhere to go. And so Jimmy brings her back to his family, which is kind of like the head of a little community. And now she is living with them. And they, like a lot of things, there's work for her to do. And so she gets scooped right in and is able to just start living with this community and everything. And not long after she's there, she actually gets approached by Jimmy again, who Jimmy has a cabin all his own that's just a few miles away. And he is having, it's a lot of work for him to care for it all by himself, right? Because again, this is what makes it feel like a historical or like frontier romance, because, everything's back to basics. He's a farmer out there. He has animals to care for, and he's exhausted doing it all. And so he's looking for a wife. Or, they don't even officially say that here because there wouldn't be like a wedding that happens. She would just become Jimmy's woman. And of course, he isn't just looking for that. Like, he wants a woman for sexual reasons as well. And, Chloe's smart. And she's like, I would love to feel secure in this way. And if I'm giving my body to him in exchange for food and shelter, like, that is the currency I have. And that's also something that Clare Kent always does very well in these type of survival books, like these apocalypse stories. There's a lot of women using the currency that they have. And so Chloe does that. And so she goes with him to his cabin in the woods and becomes Jimmy's wife, basically. So, all right, now that I've spent my good old time talking about those, I love it. Let's continue on with some of these. So the next one, those ones were survival ones. Here is one that is a snowed in together, and that is Meet Me in Wonderland by Angel Anders. And this one definitely could fit more around a Christmas one if you want it to. I do have a couple of those on this list that will fit that. But in this one is also a ex-boyfriend's dad. Thankfully not a dead boyfriend this time. He's not that bad of a guy. But she's also the assistant to him at this point too. So she dated his son for a while, but she's also worked for him for longer than that. Like, she's been broken up with his son for a while, and that hasn't affected their working relationship at all. And so she's his assistant. And so Ellie and him, they need to work on a there's a retreat that's going to be done for the business, and they go to it, and there ends up being a snowstorm, and they end up having to share a cabin because hers doesn't have the heat working. And so now they're staying together, and things are going to happen. And then when this weekend of being snowed in is over, they have to decide if they're going to keep the fire going that was happening while they're there, or whether they come back to reality. So I really enjoyed this. It is a full-length novel. This isn't a, holiday novella or anything. That's why it's just Meet Me in Wonderland. But it does take place, like, over the holidays because it's a holiday retreat. But there's definitely more going on in the book than that if you don't want, like, to read a holiday novel. Like, I'm not the hugest fan of those. But you could read it whenever, for sure. Okay, then... Sorry, I gotta stay on track here. We have one that is a kidnapped one. And we have Savage Hearts by J.T. Geisinger. Yes, I almost forgot to put this one on the list. And then I was like, if I'm doing a few kidnapping ones, this is one for sure. So in this one, we have, how do we say his name? Sorry, it's been a hot minute. There's Riley. Riley is the heroine, and Kate. No, that's Cage. That's not who we want. Mal. That's right, Mal. And in this one, so Riley is actually the younger sister of Sloane, who is one of my favorite heroines of all time from Carnal Urges. I love her in Daddy Declan's book. And her and her sister haven't been like super close lately. They both have lived kind of some different lives. And I think she might be a writer. Is she a writer? I don't know. But anyway, she gets invited to stay with her sister and her sister's new man, who is, you know, the head of a mafia and everything. And so she agrees to come and stay. And now we have Mal, who wants to get revenge against, is he wanting to get it against Declan or against Cage? I don't know. Probably Declan, because Declan and Cage don't get along. But honestly, it's been a hot minute since I've reread this book. I usually reread Carnal Urges if I'm going to reread one. So maybe I need to reread this one. It's been a while. The new edition of both Savage Hearts and, is it Brutal Vows? Yeah, Brutal Vows comes soon, so maybe I'll reread it then. But anyway, so basically the point is that he gets kind of the wrong impression of who she is to Declan. And anyway, through all these things, he ends up kidnapping her to get revenge. And he's going to just kill her. But during the time that he's like watching her to find the best time to take her out, it kind of backfires on him because he starts to fall for her. And it's also a little bit funny because Sloane kind of gets herself in a bit of trouble in this one because Riley is noticing that someone is like, she sees him a few times. His like name as an assassin is actually, I think, Ghost is what he's like called in here, if I remember correctly. And he is stalking her and even like shows up a few times to take her, and it doesn't work out. And she tells Sloane and Declan, and Sloane thinks her sister is being dramatic. Okay, not Sloane's finest moment. Okay, because there's no evidence of him getting that close to her, right? Because Declan's men are very careful, so they don't believe that anyone would have been able to get past them, except they are. And eventually he ends up kidnapping her, and he takes her to this, I believe it's in like, not quite Siberia, but I think it's in the Russian wilderness. Like he goes up through Canada and then like over to Russia or something like that. And now he has her to himself, and he's going to like keep her captive to supposedly make Declan suffer or whatever, which once he finds out that she's Sloane's sister, he's like, well, maybe this kind of does work, because if Sloane isn't happy, then Declan definitely isn't happy, and he's going to want to try to find her. But during the time he has her kidnapped, he starts to decide that, you know, maybe he wants her for himself instead. This one does involve some danger in the wilderness, including there's a bear attack and some other scary things that happen. So, yes, this one does have Trapped in a Cabin in the Woods. Now, for some of these, the level of danger in the cabin are, you know, variable, because some of them are pretty luxury, as you'll see as we go. Okay, now back to another one that is a kind of survival-esque situation. So, in this one, which, wow, it's been a long time since I read this one, but I had so much fun with it. Because this one actually has a submissive hero at the end of the day, which is kind of cool. But this is Unbound by Kara McKenna. And so in this one, we have Mary, M-E-R-R-Y, and she has lost a lot recently. Oh, yes, I remember this. Sorry, I have my notes up for this one because some of these that I pulled up are quite a bit older, right? And she's actually lost some weight and is feeling a lot healthier. And she also just recently lost her mother. And so to kind of go on this, she's going on a bit of a soul journey. And so she decides to go on a hike through the Scottish Highlands. And it's going to be a challenge for her. And so she's going to be camping and hiking and anything. And so anyway, she ends up hurting herself. And she gets rescued by Rob, who is this man with, who has a lot of self-hatred. I can't remember off the top of my head if he's an ex-soldier and that's why, but I know it has something to do with, like, the work he did has left him kind of messed up. And so he rescues her and ends up, like, helping, nurse her back to health. And they have this crazy attraction to each other. And Rob kind of lets her in a little bit on some of the kinks that he likes, which, again, he prefers to be submissive. And there's some pretty hot things that they explore together. So this one was very sexy. It was also very emotional because the reasons for his self-hatred and the reasons why he is a masochist and wants her to do certain things to him are very interesting. And this is also a case of, a heroine kind of being trained to be a bit like dominant, right? And that is rarely what the dynamic is. So it's very interesting. So yeah, there is one right there. Okay, then we have another one where the heroine gets herself into some danger. And that one is Wild North by J.B. Salisbury. And this one has a bit of a, like, over-the-top beginning, if I recall, because the heroine, if I remember, let me just double check real quick. We have Jordan, and she is, like, on a camping trip with her boyfriend and her friend, and while on this trip she discovers they're cheating on her. And that's what I mean, is like, this is bonkers, okay? Because it's the three of them camping. I believe it's just the three of them, and they're fucking each other, like, behind a tree while she's there. What did they think was gonna happen? Like, if they really didn't want her to know, why would they think when it's just the three of them there and, like, she goes to get some food that they're gonna have time to fuck before she gets back, you know? But anyway, so she is horrified and she's not gonna stay there one more moment. And so she basically, like, stomps off on her own, falls down, like, a ravine. I believe she breaks her ankle. I don't know. She hurts herself really bad. And she gets stumbled across by Alexander. And Alexander, he is actually a atypical guy. His brain works a bit differently. And when we're inside his head, it's definitely very curious. And we don't know the full story of him to start. We just know he's staying at this cabin. He's very grumpy that he's come across her. He also is almost, like, very reluctant to save her. And we're in an interesting thing because she doesn't have any way to contact anyone. And he actually has come to the place that he's at with no outside communication. And I'll just tell you this part, like, he was dropped off there by, like, people know he's there. But he comes to this place for a retreat, and while he's there, he has no contact. Like, I think he has, like, a warning system, maybe. But basically, it's just a check-in system. Like, there's going to be someone coming to check on him in, like, a week or so to pick him up and bring him back to civilization. So I'll just say this, too. He's a very well-off type of guy. He's chosen to come stay in the middle of nowhere for a specific part of time. And Jordan, you know, she basically has to stay with him until those people are going to come check him out. So, yeah, so this one of the things to know is, like, he's a billionaire mountain man, and he also doesn't seem to quite care about, like, how well she's taking care of or not in the start of it type of thing. So, yeah, she's kind of at his mercy until someone comes to help them. So, anyway, I remember being kind of sad because, well, no, not with this book, but I was hopeful that the whole series would be kind of like in the wilderness type of things, and it's not. It's just Alexander who likes to go stay in the middle of nowhere. So I remember being sad about that because I was like, really? Okay, next we have another one that is a woman getting hurt and getting rescued, and another guy living in the middle of nowhere. So we have Haven by Rebecca Weatherspoon. This is one I love so much, and, like, Rebecca Weatherspoon is able to pack so much emotion and intensity into such small books, because all three books in the Beards and Bondage series are pretty short, and they have so much both emotional weight. They're very spicy, they're very, like, emotional, and she just does such a good job with that. I love that. So anyway, this one was a week-long getaway with Claudia, and I believe it's her brother is what it was. and her brother end up getting like set upon, and they kill her brother, and she has to make a run for it. She just has to leave her brother where he is. Again, I'm pretty positive it's her brother. She's not there with a boyfriend. But anyway, it's very traumatic. And so she is on the run, and she's able to make it to basically the front door of Shep's cabin. So Shep is a reclusive nature photographer. It's just him and his dog, and he lives kind of at the top of this mountain, and there is some civilization down the mountain. Like, he does have a town that he goes into and back, but he is fairly isolated to the point that when she shows up on his doorstep and there are killers coming after her, like, he's gonna have to be the one to protect her, and you know, there are no cops he can call in time. Like, it has to be him. And so once he has like rescued her, it now kind of is going to mess with his life, but it also, you know, could possibly make him feel alive again. And this series is all BDSM as well, so you'll have to see how BDSM gets involved in it, and maybe you'll like that and maybe you won't. But I do think it is her brother. Sorry, I'm just double checking my notes. But the way this one goes too is they don't get into like a bunch of crazy sexual stuff right away. There is parts of his life that he shares with her, but then she goes back to civilization, and it is a while later that she can't stop thinking about him. And after what she's lived through, like, it's just tough to be in the normal world now, you know, after losing her brother that way, and she feels trauma bonded to him. Like, we'll call it what it is. She feels trauma bonded to this man who rescued her and gave her a second chance, and she wants to see him again and possibly explore what they have between them. So that is Haven. And I would also call book 2 in the series, which I can't remember the name of, which I bet I could find out right now because I can just look up the series right here. Sanctuary. That one also has a bit of a, like, it's not really, I think, cabin in the woods, but there is Liz, who there's someone out to kill her. She's being targeted by a former client, and she goes to stay with this guy Silas, who is the brother of her friend, and it's on his farm. So that's a good one too. It doesn't quite fit in this category, but it does fit the like forced proximity, staying in a home together. So if you like that, I mean, if you like Haven, you should continue reading this series because those are really good. Okay, now we have another accident kind of over like Christmassy time. And this one is Loving the Mountain Man by Adriana Anders. Now, there are a few books actually called like Loving the Mountain Man. So this one is by Adriana Anders, as I said. This is a part of the Love at Last series. And this one involves Krista Evans, who was supposed to, there was supposed to be a work retreat. And not only does there start to be a storm, but she discovers that like, I don't remember if it's her boss. It might be. Because I think he then like holds this against her. I think how it was is he had like told her a different day than everyone else, or else purposely like didn't tell her that everyone else was canceling. But whatever it was, this guy was trying to get her alone at this retreat they were going to have so that he could kind of pressure her into something sexual. And when she says fuck no, you know, he very quickly goes about getting her fired. But either way, she needs to get back to her home, and her car careens off a cliff. And so she would be dead except for this big bearded recluse, Micah, who rescues her and takes her back to his cabin in the woods. And now, again, it is in the middle of a storm, and so we can't just take her out of there right away. And then we stay with Micah for, you know, the weekend or whatever. And there's also something cool. Micah is a amputee. I believe he was a wounded warrior, if I'm remembering correctly, but either way, I know he has a prosthetic leg, which I thought was really interesting, really great rep right there. Not something that you see all the time. Yes, he is ex-military. And this one is over Christmas, and he also has some very lovable dogs. So this is a little quickie. This one is more of a Christmas novella, but it's still really good. And when you're trapped in a cabin in the woods over the winter, it kind of feels Christmassy no matter what, but you know. Okay, now we have, this one is really fun to hold up, so hold on here. This book I really like. But I do always laugh because, okay, so I had this book on a wish list, right? Because a lot of my friends, you know, you put some of your favorite books on a wish list and they'll send them to you. And I am befuddled with why the author made this book in these dimensions. Though there is some really beautiful art in here, so I don't know if that was the whole purpose of it being that big, like was for the artwork. I don't know why it couldn't have been scaled down though. But I'll show you what I mean. So there's this book called Redemption. Yeah, you see how big it is? See how big it is? I love this book. So good. This is a woman on the run with her 3 daughters, I believe. Her husband is, I can't remember what branch. I don't think he's just a police officer. I think he works for something other than that. But she's in a dangerous position because her husband is abusive. He's pulled a gun on her before. And after the last time, she makes a run for it with the girls. And while they're on the run for it, they end up, her name is Ebony and her kids, and they crash at like the base of his property. And I love this because we have Yushiro, and he has 2 dogs. Their names are Salt and Peppa, and I think they're huskies, and I just love that. But anyway, he rescues them and brings them to his home. Now, he is someone who was like, I think we would say like he was ex-Yakuza is what I would say, if I'm remembering correctly. And he had kind of left that work, and so he made himself a recluse because the only way for him to really survive leaving them was to, you know, not step on anybody's toes, take himself to the middle of nowhere. And again, if I'm also correct, part of the reason he left is that he was a bit of a like assassin for them, and he had done a job that he very much regretted that he did. Again, been many years since I read this one, so sorry if I'm wrong, but I do know that he's left that work and doesn't want anything to do with it, for sure. Whether it was ex-mob or it was something else, but I think that's what it was that. And he rescues Ebony and her girls, and he's like, you guys are safe to stay with me, and you can stay with me as long as you want, and I also have state-of-the-art protection. I have my dogs, and also, not only do I have my main home, but he also has like a guest cabin. So it's like forced proximity in that, but there's also still space for like her and her kids to have their own space. And he really is just I mean, it's hard to say it, like he was a hired killer, so let's say that, but he has become a very genuinely good guy. It's tough to say. It's a dark world, right? We're fine with it. So yeah, these 2 fall in love with it. And this one does also take precedence. Like one of the lines here says, yet sometimes the best Christmas presents come from a bullet. Every so often a good Christmas miracle is a cut up body to end a nightmare. So he then wants to use his skills one more time to rescue her from her demons, aka her horrible husband. And yeah, this book is huge. It is the size of a textbook, but let me show you one of the, so when I got this in the mail, I thought this was like, this had to be a joke or something, right? How like huge it was. Oh, why can't I find one of them? But yeah, it was just this big. So, you know, it's not even, yeah. Okay, where's one of them? Here we go. Here we go. There's artwork in here. So you can, of course, read it on Kindle and not have a huge one, but I just kind of love it a little bit that it is so, I mean, who doesn't want this beautiful couple on your shelf? It's just, it doesn't fit quite with everything else, you know? I should look and see if it ever, like, got resized, because I would love to have a normal size one of that as well, but all right, we got to keep it moving, because I'm taking too long as usual to get through these, but all right, then we have one that just never got enough attention, so I want to make sure to bring this one up for you. And this is another kidnapped you one. And in this one, he has kidnapped her because he wants her to love him. And so it's a gentle kidnapping, right? He doesn't force her into anything besides that he kidnapped her. And she's also a criminal as well, so it's not like she has the best leg to stand on. But this is Heartset by Ashley Mack. And Ashley Mack is a friend of mine. She has written quite a few books. I'm very proud of her. But, you know, she is very small. She is a YouTuber and TikToker, and her books just haven't caught on in the way I wish they would, because I really do think they are very good and very easy to read. She writes very obsessive heroes, the very sexy, but also like really good ones. So this one is Joanna Tinsley and Declan. And now Joanna is a grifter, and 3 years ago, she stole $1.5 million from Declan O'Connor, and it really kind of like blew him away. So she had been kind of undercover working for like his company, and she pulled off this grift. It isn't just her, there's other people in it involved as well. And so she's been on the run from him. And she happens to be casing for a new heist, and she runs into him again. And so he is the head of the Irish family, and he's not going to forget, you know, not only that she owes him, but that he wants her really badly. And so he offers her that he'll help her with the current heist, and afterwards she will belong to him for 30 days. And now her plan is to go along with his help so she can pull off this, and then like, oh, I'm not going to get with him. Well, he knows she's going to try to get away, so he gets her and he brings her to his cabin, and she's basically kind of locked in with him in the Catskills in an isolated cabin for 30 days. And he's like, you promised me 30 days. I'm not going to let you get out of this. You're going to stay with me for 30 days. And if at the end of 30 days I have not convinced you that I love you or that you should be with me, I will let you go on your way and I'll let you be. But he's very convinced that he can win her over in this time. So it's like I said, it's a very sweet kidnapping. You know, there's no harm done, but he's also not going to let her leave until she gives him a chance. So, okay, then we have a really sweet one here. We have Sink or Swim by Annabeth Albert. And I will tell you, I'm so sad this author hasn't written more books in this series. I'm very sad about it. But this one, we have Navy Chief Calder, who loves to win big, and he ends up in a poker game winning a remote cabin. And so he goes to check it out, and he ends up hurting himself, and then a snowstorm is showing up. And just as he's there is a silver fox and his two nieces who he has adopted, and the property is his, but Calder has paperwork that says otherwise. So this guy, what is his name? Felix is his name. His ex and him owned this. I can't remember if it's his ex-husband or ex-partner or whatever, but he gambled it away, and he's flabbergasted about this because he thought he had this place to retreat to with his nieces and to take a break from everything that's going on. I believe he's also a doctor. Yeah, it is his ex-husband. And so he's going to tolerate this stranger and take care of his injuries, and then, you know, they're going to get it all figured out with the cabin and everything. So yeah, these two are forced around each other for this weekend, and they really start to fall for each other really hard. And when the weekend is over, they're not going to so easily forget each other. So this one is really sweet. And yeah, I just wish there was more from her, because this is book 2 in a series. Now the first one isn't a, the first one is actually a fake dating with Calder's younger brother and his buddy from the Navy. And then this one is his romance. So very good one. I like it a lot. Okay, then we have Hush Darling, and this is another one of a woman on the run. And this one actually has a deaf hero who ends up being kind of her like landlord, as it were. So in this we have Gia, and she's basically running from like her mafia husband who's abusive. And when she discovers she's pregnant, she goes on the run because she is not going to let her child be treated like she is. And when she's running away, things go off kilter, and she ends up kind of, I believe she crashes as well. There's a cabin. She ends up kind of breaking into it to stay for the night. And when Tanner goes on his rounds with his, I think he has a dog, he comes across this woman staying in one of his cabins. Because I think he like rents them out and everything like that. And that's his, you know, what he does. And he spent the last 3 years living in this like solitude and just, you know, renting these out, but keeping to himself. And so this woman is now staying there, and he can tell that everything she's saying is a lie, but he can also feel that she is in danger. And so even though she won't tell him everything, for her it's because she's not only trying to stay like hidden, but she also doesn't want him to be involved in, you know, to get hurt by what, you know, her ex, or, you know, her husband might try to do. But he has a few more things in his past than she knows about either. So there's that. So this one does have some romantic suspense. Again, it does have a deaf hero, and those two trying to work together through, to survive through that. Okay, now I have one last one for you. This is quite the throwback one for sure, but I've already talked on long enough about these. These are supposed to be my short videos, but I have so much to say. We have one called Outnumbered by Shay Savage. Okay, now this one definitely has some suspense, and this one has, what's the hero's name? I don't know, but this book is like from his point of view too, which is something Shay Savage does a few times. She writes a lot of her books just from the hero's POV, which is cool. What's his name? He's living in a secluded cabin. There's a woman who here we go, it's Bishop, who gets in an accident, and he has a lot of past demons that he's hiding. So he finds this injured girl near his cabin, and so he brings her home. And so despite the challenge of sharing his space with another human, Bishop finds an odd sense of acceptance of his new house guests. So Siri is the name of this girl, but very quickly, some other personalities start to reveal themselves from within her. So this is why this is called Outnumbered, is that it's Bishop and Siri, but also Nettie and also another. And so this is a deeply traumatized woman who has more than one identity in her head. So that is what I'll say about this one, but it did not fully go the way that you think it will go. It was a very interesting tale for sure. So those are some books that involve being trapped in a cabin in the woods. So let me know some of your faves. Again, definitely go check out these other forced proximity that I've listed, because again, there are plenty that I had to leave out because I just tried to pick the ones where we're in the cabin for the most of the story. But again, there are ones that are snowbound. I have a whole list of snowbound. I have a whole list of apocalypse, and a whole list of survival ones, and those all have those within it. So definitely check those out before you recommend a bunch below, because I probably have read it. Like if there's a trapped in a cabin, like I probably read it. I just didn't put all however many in here, so definitely check those out. And again, I'll have links to all these books down below if you want to purchase through the link. It does help out the channel, as well as of course it helps out the author. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.